Hello everyone, welcome to part 4 of our port forwarding video series. So this is where we are currently, part 4, where we're going to talk about dynamic port forwarding using Ligolo-ng. Our previous part, or previous session, we talked about the introduction, and then part 1 had to do with local port forwarding using SSH. We also did local port forwarding using Chisel, and the last part, which was part 3, we did dynamic port forwarding using Chisel and proxy chains. And now, in part 4, we're talking about a similar way of port forwarding, but this time around, we're not going to use proxy chains. We're going to use Ligolo-ng. Alright, so no proxy chain and Chisel, we're going to use Ligolo-ng. Alright, so it behaves in a similar manner, but you'll get to understand the differences when we do the practical demonstration. Alright, so if you followed along, you realize that we are using Hack the Box, a machine from Hack the Box as our remote server. Okay, so in this machine we have some ports exposed, which we're going to try to port forward onto our local machine. Alright, so this is the IP address of the machine. Let's copy it, and then I have already scanned. I've done an mmap scan of the machine, so I used rust scan to scan the port, and then we realized that this is the IP. We realized that two ports were open, so port 22 and port 80 were open on that remote machine. And then also, if you look here on my right pane, you can see that we have some ports open here. So I just SSH into the machine, the remote machine, as Frank Docky. So I have SSH credentials for a user called Frank Docky, and then I was able to get an SSH session, all right, into the machine. The name of the machine is Formula X, all right. And then I realized that we had so many other ports which we couldn't see when we just did the nmap scan, all right. So these ports were just local to the machine. They were not exposed to external access. All right, so that's why we couldn't see port 3000, port 8000, and all these other ports. So the only ports which were accessible to us were port 80. You could see that the IP here, so is 000. So it means every IP you are able to access this port. Similarly, we have every IP able to access this port 22. So that's why we're able to see these ports open, but these local ports were not accessible to us. So we're going to use the port forwarding to try to access this port and see if the applications that are running on them are accessible to us. All right, so that's what we're going to do, and then we're going to use Ligolo-ng. So what we have to do is we have to go and download the binaries for Ligolo-ng. So let's go to Ligolo-ng, I think GitHub. We'll have them on their GitHub repository. So okay, so if you can read you can have a brief description of what it is, what it's used for. We're not going to do that. We're just going to go straight to a demonstration and how to use Ligolo-ng to do the port forwarding. So I'll head over to the release page and then download the binaries we are going to be using. So we need two binaries. So we need a proxy and an agent. Okay, so the proxy is going to be on our host system, and then the agent is going to be sent to the server. All right, so we need to download the right file. All right, so this is proxy alpha Linux AMD 64. So I think this is the file that we're looking for. You have to be sure. Oh, is this Darwin? Okay, let's download Linux. I don't know, but I just Darwin. Okay, it's Linux. Okay, so let's do that. I'll come back to my local machine if I list. Okay, so our wget, yeah, so this is Linux. Okay, so I think it's downloading here. So I'll come back, and then that's what did we get? We got a proxy, so we're now going to look for the agent. Okay, so Linux AMD, what is it? Yeah, I think this one. Yeah, so we have this Linux AMD, and then we do the same. We download that one as well. wget. Right, so if we list, we have the files here. So we have Ligolo-ng, Ligolo-ng agent, and Ligolo-ng proxy. So what we have to do is to extract them. So I'll just say tar xvf Ligolo-ng agent. Okay, so I think the agent is extracted. So I will do an extraction for the proxy. All right, so we have the proxy also extracted. So we can see that we have agent and then proxy. All right, so the agent is going to be used on our local machine, and then the proxy is going to be sent to the remote machine. So let me quit this. So I'm just going to get a different shell. All right, I'm going to SSH into the server again, so I'll have a new shell. So SSH user from Docky at what's the IP address of our server. So we have the IP there. Okay, and we need to specify the password. Okay, so yeah, so we have a new session here. All right, so when we list, we see that we have Chisel. I think it was from our previous session. So what we have to do now is to download the Ligolo-ng agent. So this agent, we need to transfer this agent onto our remote machine. Okay, so before we can do that, we need to stage it. All right, so what I'll do is I'll try to stage this, and then I'll use python 3.m http.server. all right, so the file is staged, and then this is my tan0 IP address, and I come back here, so I will now have to download it, wget, and then I think it's called agent. Yeah, so you see that the get request has come through. It's okay, successful. And when we list, we should be able to see our agent. All right, but the agent is not executable, so we need to make it executable. Okay, so agent. All right, so when we list, we can see that the agent is now executable. So yeah, so if we list, we see the files here. Okay, great. So what we're gonna do is to, so first of all, we can try to see if we can access any of these ports. Let's just try first, and we realize that we are not going to be able to. All right, so none of those ports are accessible to us. Okay, so that's the reason why we're going to do the port forwarding. Okay, so if you go onto Ligolo-ng, if you go onto their page, you should be able to get information about how to use it. Okay, so if you go to the, let's see where they put it. So here, so if you go to Ligolo documentation and quick start, they have a very good docs on how to use. And then when you go to quick start, so it will show you, to give you step by step, you know. Did I press quick start? Yeah, so you can see we have prerequisite for Linux and then Windows. All right, so here we are creating some interfaces. All right, but if you have the new version, you don't have to go through this particular stage. I'll show you shortly. And then so this is where it starts using Ligolo-ng. So after you've set up the interface and everything, so this is how you're going to use it. All right, so let's just go into it. So so for the proxy, so we have the proxy here. So how we're going to use a proxy is you just do proxy. Okay, yeah, so say proxy and then self set. Okay, yeah, so it's running. So it's running without any certificate, so it's a self-signed certificate. All right, if you don't want to encounter any certificate errors. If you have a certificate, you can actually specify it. If you look at the docs, you see how you can specify your own certificate. But if you don't, you can use the tag self set. All right, so if you go to the docs, you see that we have proxy self set. So use self-signed certificates. Okay, so that's the proxy part. And now if you go to the agent, you need to try to connect back to the attacker, and then on the port which is exposed on the server. So if you look at the connection on the proxy, so this is the server, so it's listening on all IP addresses on this port. All right, so that's what we're gonna do. So what we have to do is say agent and then connect to 10.10.14.144 and then on port 11601. So this port, all right, you're connecting back to this port, and then so this IP address is the IP address of our town 0. So if we want to verify, we can do that. So if you do IP A and then you grab town 0, you can see that that's the IP address that we are using. All right, so and then because we are using a self-signed certificate, we have to ignore set. If you don't use ignore set, it's not going to work. So you say ignore set. All right, so you can see that a connection has been established, and then we have the agent joining us. So the agent has been joined to Ligolo. All right, so let's come back here, and then what we have to do is to create an interface. All right, so if you do interface list, I'm going to expand this. So if you do interface list, you can see that we only have the town 0 interface, but we have to create our own interface so that we can tunnel all the traffic from the remote machine through that particular interface. So we have to say interface create, and then I think it's name. So we say name of the interface. We're just gonna call it Ligolo. You can call it anything, but you have to remember whatever name you give to it. So Ligolo, and then that should be it. What is it? Say creating a new Ligolo. So okay, interface creating new interface. Let's say interface list. Okay, so the interface was not created. I'm thinking because we are not root, we're supposed to create the interface with root. So we can go back and do that. So let's do that here. All right, so I'm going to exit. How do I exit Ligolo? Okay, so I've exited, and now I'm going to create the interface. So the user is Kali on the machine. So if you check the user of the host is Kali. We can verify that. You can, if you want to verify the user, you can say who am I. Yeah, you see that the user is Kali. All right, and then yeah, I think that should be it. And then we specify our password. Yeah, so I think the interface is created. If you do IPA, we should be able to see a Ligolo interface. All right, so this is the Ligolo interface. yeah, so what we can do again is to do we can connect back with the agent, and then we say connect to 10.10.14.144, and then port 1106. Is it right? 11. Okay, so it was this port. So it's oh yeah. So I think we have to go back. So we have to go back and connect the agent. All right, so the agent is, yeah, so agent connect back to, okay, yeah, so the proxy will have to be connected first before the agent. Okay, so let's clear this. I think we're having a tough time with Ligolo-ng, so we just do proxy, and then we say self set. All right, okay, so I think that's it, and then we'll go back and then try to connect the agent again. It should connect now. Yeah, so we have the agent joining. Okay, so the agent has joined. So now if we check interface, if we list interface, we should be able to see our Ligolo interface. Okay, so you see that our Ligolo interface is now there, so we have our Ligolo interface created. All right, so we can select session, so you can have different sessions, so we are using the session from this agent. So if you select one, it's going to connect you to that particular session. So we have session joined. All right, and then you can check the interfaces on this particular machine or the agent. If you do ifconfig, you can see the interfaces available. So you have a loopback interface, and then you have an Ethernet 0 interface. We don't need any of this. All right, so what we need to do is to create a route. All right, so for the local port forwarding that we are trying to do, we need to create a route. All right, so I think it's interface route create or route create. Let's see if we can see what it is. Route, I think it's route add. Yeah, so route add, and then we have name. So the name is going to be the name of the interface that you want to use. So the interface is Ligolo, and then the route that we're going to use is going to be 240.0.0.1/32. all right, so we are trying to create a single route, all right, so that all the traffic will pass through this, and then Ligolo is going to translate this into our local host. So this particular IP address is part of the reserved. Okay, so it's hard-coded in Ligolo. all right, so it's hard-coded in Ligolo. If you want to access the local port, you have to use this IP address. All right, 240.0.0.1. okay, so operation not permitted. Okay, so it's not allowing us. Okay, so I think we are having these challenges because we are not root. I think you need root permission to do this kind of operation. So we'll go to our machine and try to add a route manually. Okay, so what do I do? Let me come here, let me go up. I'll just close this staging that we did. Okay, so here I'll try to add a route. So I was trying to add a route from Ligolo, but it wasn't allowing me, so I'll have to use sudo and then IP route add. I don't know if that's the correct command. So 240.0.0.1, and then do I use mask, or I'll just say /32. Let's see if this works. Pass up. If we can't. Okay, so yeah, so I think route add, and then I think we have to specify a device, and then the device name is Ligolo. Okay, good. Yeah, so you can see that we're having some challenges here. So I think we didn't bring up the link, so I think it's sudo IP link set Ligolo app. Okay, so I think the link is up now. So if we try to add the route, so I think it's added now. So if you do IP route, you can see that our Ligolo interface has been added. All right, our Ligolo route has been added. All right, so if this is done right, let's go back to Ligolo, and then I think we'll just have to start the tunnel. If you don't start the tunnel, it's still not going to work after all this configuration. Let's check. Okay, let's check. See, it's still not working. All right, so let's try and then say tunnel. Let's list tunnels first. Tunnel list. Looks like we don't have a tunnel, so let's say tunnel starts. Okay, all right, so it's starting a tunnel for us. All right, so we have a tunnel now. So if we do tunnel list again, we should have a tunnel. Okay, then when we go back and try to access this again, okay, so it's not working because the IP that we used a special IP, reserved IP. So if you use 127, it's not going to work. All right, so we have to use the 240.0.0.1 that we have in our route. All right, so if you see, we have the route here, 240.0.0.1. so that's what we have to use. Okay, and then we can see that it's working. All right, so I think this one was a bit challenging, so but it's made us to do the troubleshooting together, and then these are some of the problems you're going to encounter when you're trying to do this port forwarding. All right, so yeah, so we've been able to access this particular port. So let's see if we can access other ports. So let's try for port 8000. Port 8000 is also working. All right, so dynamically we are accessing all the ports. All right, so all the ports are accessible to us. So 8081, let's try 8081. 8081 is going to work. Yeah, it's coming back. The same thing will happen to 8082. So yeah, that is it about dynamic port forwarding using Ligolo-ng. And then we're trying to actually do it without the wiki. But if you go through the wiki, it will tell you all the things that you have to do. For instance, when we forgot to start the link, like to bring up the interface, so over here we're supposed to bring it up. So link sets Ligolo app, which we didn't. So when we tried to use it, it didn't work. And then also, if you come here, so access, so this part, access to agent local port. So this is what we're trying to do. So you can see that if you want to access to the agent local port on 127.0.0, you have to use this particular IP. You see, so you have to use this particular IP range, which is unused IP subnet. It's in the reserved range. All right, so that's what they did here. And then yeah, they were able to access it. So if you don't use this particular IP, you cannot do a local port forward. You will not be able to access the local ports. All right, so yeah, so that's the end of the video, or the end of our session for dynamic port forwarding using Ligolo-ng. I think yeah, we did learn a lot from here. So I think I prefer using Ligolo-ng to proxy chains. Okay, yeah, if you start using Ligolo-ng and become familiar to it, I'm not sure you're gonna go back to proxy chains. Just get the understanding of how to use it, and then you should be fine. All right. So the last part is also done. So part 4 is done. Maybe I may decide to extend this. I may add other parts in the future. All right, but for now we're going to stop at part 4. If there's any new port forwarding method or tool that I want to demonstrate, I'll add it. I'll create a new part and then I'll add it to the playlist. All right, so I hope my videos have been informative and helps you in your way to understand how port forwarding works. All right, and don't forget to like and subscribe, and then I'll see you again in future videos.